Hello, family. Good afternoon again, and welcome to another segment of our show, which is known as Platform Conversations. I believe that everyone this very particular day is blessed, and you all are having a rested time, enjoying too well that last week it was back to back of the things in which we're doing, but this week also, I don't know about you, but I mean, last week for me it was a blessed week that I experienced God in the different dimensions, whereby we get to have what we call the Rested Life Women Conference. And I believe the majority of you were blessed on that very particular event. And a lot of people have been sending their message of saying that they were blessed and that was a phenomenal event and congratulating us on our first event. But I just want to say to you all, thank you so much for making sure that you make it a date for you to be with us at that very particular point in time. It was actually a wonderful moment that we do not take for granted. I really appreciate you. And so this week, I'm trying as much as possible for me to have it on the low side. I don't know about you, but I'm trying very hard for me to have it on the low side just to make sure that I kind of get my what's it called my momentum back again in the sense of trying as much as possible to rest. But you know how the work is. You just have to wake up in the morning and also get kicking and also as much as possible push what you need to push and also to do what you need to do. And so today, definitely, I'll be having a guest who will be joining me later on, and this guest is no any other person than Stephina Zwane, who happens to be the writing director of a particular movie known as Baby Mamas, which is a movie that is currently now on Netflix. For those of you who don't know about that movie, you may want to go watch it. But this very particular lady, the conversations around it is not actually the fame. The conversations around it is just the fact that this is a lady who's been able to push her narratives and at the same time also changing the status quo. What we do as platform conversation is the fact that we bring in people who have been able to literally change the narratives and also the conversations around how you perceive things and also how you change things. And so she'll be joining me a bit later, and I think it's because she's running a bit late just to make sure that she's on her desk for us to be able to connect and also have this very particular interview going because it's been scheduled for 1 o'clock, and so definitely I also have to now come up and to make sure that we have a conversations around it. But nonetheless, this is a lady for me. She's a God-fearing lady. This is somebody that understands her faith, but at the same time, she did not box her faith within the context of the church, but at the same time take the light to the world. And this is the thing which I say to people, and I'm saying that we are not called for us to just sit in the church space without us creating an effect in the marketplace, because that's what we're called for. And I remember very well almost all the guests for last week Rested Life Women Conference, which is all about restructuring or repositioning. We're all talking about how to take effect in the marketplace, how to be able to make sure that your light shines in the place of influence, especially on the 7 mountains of influence, and also how to make sure that you enjoy you create an impact in that very particular space. And so my guest that will be coming up later on, and as soon as she is here, definitely we'll get into the interview and also to make sure that we then continue these conversations to make sure that you then begin to see how to engage in the narratives of changing and influence in the mountains. And also for those of you who joined me yesterday in service, one of the big things in which we're talking about yesterday's service is what we titled co-laboring. How do we co-labor with the divine? How to be able to position some certain narratives and to make sure that we co-labor with God. Because the truth of it is the fact that I think I was speaking to a particular servant of God. I don't want to mention the name now on air. Is the fact that one of the things in which we're talking about when it comes to issue of this faith in which we subscribe to as a believer, because we think that the believers, that our faith that we subscribe to is just for the things of the church alone. It's not actually the things for the church alone. The church is just it's part of God's mystery for him to be able to download some certain principle and precept and to also empower us for us to know what to do in the marketplace. And so based on this very particular reality, we get to understand that when Jesus came into the world, Jesus actually came to die for the world and not to die for the church alone. And so based on this very particular understanding, until our mind is beginning to shift to the new reality that everything that we are seeing currently is based on the fact that Christ has come to redeem us. When we're talking about redeeming, we're not talking about the fact that Christ has come to remove us from this world, because that's one of the biggest things which I'm seeing that is currently being peddled around the gospel gospel environment is the fact that no, we've been redeemed. And so based on the redemption, we don't actually have any part to play in this world. No, your redeeming status that has been given to you is for you to be able to pull in the fullness of who God is in this very particular world. And so based on that, I tell people, I say, God does not hate the unbeliever. And let's just have that very particular thing. God does not hate them. He hates the sin nature in them not believing Jesus Christ as their Lord and personal Savior. And until we begin to get our understanding, because this is where we as believers, simply because you find yourself that you are born again and you could speak in tongues all of a sudden, now you now hate the unbelievers and stuff. No, literally, Christ came to die for the unbelievers. If you notice, when he was having the conversations with the Jews and the Pharisees and those very particular people who refuses to accept the gospel of Jesus, he said to them, he said, I did not come for me to meet up to hang around the Jews. I came to redeem that which is lost. And so, if he came to redeem that which is lost, no wonder we can see with the lifestyle of Jesus that he was hanging around on people in quotes who were unbelievers for them to be redeemed and for them to understand the fullness of what had been given to them. And so, based on this very particular reality, we get to find out that a lot of people are literally struggling for them to accept this very particular concept. They are really struggling for them to accept the fact that just because you are saved and you are tongue speaking, that doesn't make you what you call only unique in the eyes of God. No, God is still interested in everybody. Mind you, he sent his son to come and die for everyone. And he said, whosoever believe. Whosoever means whosoever. Whosoever believes shall be saved. And that's the most important thing that is very important for us to understand. Whosoever believe will be saved. And so, based on this very particular reality, I want you to understand that God actually wants you rested. God actually wants you to enjoy life. Don't look at that very unbelievers and think that the unbeliever that is there currently now, that there is no hope for them. You'll be so shocked. There is hope for everyone as long as they subscribe and they believe in God. All things are possible. As long as they subscribe and they believe in Jesus, all things in which they need to do is actually available for them. It's just for them to awaken. And even us as believer, is for us to be awakened into the consciousness of who Christ is. And so with this being said, so that I can go, I can see that my guest is currently now on the screen, and so that we can then go in and enjoy this very particular conversation with my dear, very good friend who is currently now live on at the back end. It's good to see you. How are you doing, my dear friend? I hope you can hear me.
How are you doing?
I'm fine, and you?
I'm good. Thank you. Lovely to see you.
It's lovely to see you too. Long time.
It has been.
No, it has been long. It has been long time, and we're currently live on air, and so everything that we say, definitely everybody is currently listening to us. I decided to come live on air quickly so that I can be able to keep up with the time that we have allocated, so that we can then be able to push this very particular thought very quickly and to go into our conversation. But it's actually good to see you. It's been long. Tell me what is happening before we get into the business of today. What have you been busy with, and how is it going? I can see that you look as if you've been running from a mountain down to.
Yeah, no, it's been a crazy morning.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we've been just busy with life and trying to acclimatize to our new world order of the COVID-19 pandemic
Yeah.
and lockdown, and trying to take it easy during lockdown.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right, family. This is my guest who I'm talking to today. Her name is called Stephina Zwane. I was remember when my producer was around arranging this very particular event, and I got the information. I was laughing. I'm like, okay, this is a friend that I've known for quite some time. It's just how funny how life just find a way of rerouting you back again. It was some sad inheritance of people in your life that you thought. And I was saying to her, and I also said to my producer yesterday, and I said one of the things that we need to understand is the fact that we need to be careful how we treat people around our space, because you never can tell how the ball will turn around, and all of a sudden you may need that very particular person, but the way you treat them previously, and if they treat you wrong this time, don't be angry, because whatever you saw in time past, you will definitely repeat. And it's life. It has nothing to do with the devil. It has nothing to do with God trying to punish you.
Like blaming the devil.
Exactly. It has nothing to do with the devil. It has nothing to do with God punishing you and stuff. It's just what you sow. And the popular saying I like saying is the fact that whatever you sow, you wear. I know people say what you sow, you reap. But for me, I change it. I say what you sow, you wear. It's like a cloth. If you take a 2 meter cloth and your cloth is supposed to be, I mean, your body is for 5 meter. If you take a
Mm.
2 meter cloth to a tailor, they will sew a 2 meter for you. If it doesn't fit you, gets close. That's what you give the tailor, and they will design it for you like that. That way, it gets close. And so, based on this thing, I think one of the things I want to put on the table before we get into the full conversation with my guest this moment is the fact that please be careful how you treat people. Be
Mm.
careful how you treat people. Everything we say in life, it's all about seed time and harvest. Seed time and harvest. So you may think that that very particular seed in which you are sowing, that it will not come back. See, sometimes it can come back, press down, shake it together, and running over immediately. I will
Mm.
never believe that I'll be interviewing this very particular lady. I think, if I'm not mistaken, after I can't count how many years now. That's almost after.
It's
Damn
a
it!
long time ago.
I'm trying to think the year, but whatever. I
No,
think it was
it's
almost more
a
than
very
5 years.
long time
Almost
ago.
more than 6, 7 years ago. Yeah.
It's
But
longer, much
like,
longer.
I'm trying to be
It's
conservative so that
really,
they don't.
it, it's easily about maybe 12 years ago.
Okay, now
That's how
that's
it's long.
at least you're a woman, so you can keep dates and time. Men are not very good with numbers. We're only good with numbers that are money, but when it comes to numbers, they're like, it's okay, it's fine.
Yeah.
All right, family. My guest today is no another person. Like I said, her name is called Stephina. I remember we arguing that, like, I thought it was Stephanie. She's like, no, it's Stephina. You are the one who is calling me Stephanie, but it's Stephina. I'm like, okay, it's fine. Your name, let's not like you. And she's been in the media space for quite some time. I remember meeting her years back, like she said. She's actually been in the media space for from that time, like she said, almost 12 years ago, up to now. And so our conversations will be going around how did she manage to navigate, and she never gave up, especially for the fact that, one, for me, she's a woman. Getting to understand that the industry is actually dominated by men, and we're trying as much as possible to see how women are coming up on the space to begin to rewrite the narratives for you to understand that it's literally women also can do what they can do, and also they can do what men can do at the same time also. That's one. So in case if you have any questions around this very particular thing, please feel free to definitely send it us. So send your questions, and we'll be able to answer your burning questions when it comes to the issue of the corporate world, especially on the media entertainment space, and also when it comes to navigating the ups and downs of life and how to stand strong. And so, with this being said, she is a producer, no, writer, director. I think I have to be very specific. Writer, director of a new movie that I bumped into on Netflix 2 months ago. Some people call Baby Mama, and very interesting movie. I think I've seen that movie. Then I also saw a particular one. I've forgotten the title now, but Baby Mama is a current movie which she's produced, and
Yeah.
also very interesting movie. For me, I was looking at the storyline, how the whole thing was intertwined, and before we know what was going on, I think the one that shocked me was the fact that all of a sudden they know Ranaka now fall pregnant. I'm like, damn it! I thought I thought the whole thing is over, but it's one of those things, and that's one. Then secondly, also this is a woman of faith. How she was able to pull her faith into that very particular influence of mountain. If you remember last week, we have a conference that we're talking about occupying the mountains of influence, and she's really vocal on that space, trying as much as possible to rewrite the narratives around it. But before we get into some of your questions, I can see that is currently now popping up here. My guest, thank you so much for giving us the time again. I know you are busy.
No, thank you. I really appreciate it.
A year. All right, now as we get into a question, why do you still choose? How? Okay, I think, no, let's not even get there because now I'm taking it to the second phase of the question. Why media for you? What happened? How did you get to why media? Let's start from there.
Look, I think I had no other choice because I got into media when I was very young.
Okay.
I was about 15 when I first got my first job in media as a
Okay.
TV presenter on a kids' TV program.
Mm,
And yeah, by the time I wanted to choose a career, or I was at a stage where I could choose a career, it had already chosen me, and I found myself in this very volatile, very controversial, very rewarding
mm,
industry. Yeah, so I've stuck to it. I think there's times when you want to leave because it is rough, it does get tough, but
okay.
something always pulls you back. So yeah, I've
Mm,
been I've been in this industry now for, I think this is my 20th year doing
wow.
this.
That's a lot of your 20 years doing this very particular one work. And if we were to look at it when it comes to the issue of the challenges that you currently face, before we get into the whole issues, how to women empowerment, changing the narratives in the space of media, you said you what you call that very particular industry chose you. And there are a lot of people who will tell you that, okay, the industry chose me, but at the same time, also, I end up finding myself out of the industry simply because it wasn't going. What keeps you going? Regardless of the fact 20 years, that's a lot of years for you to still stay put, regardless of the fact that you have all those challenges that we will talk about later on.
Look, I think what ends up, like I said, it's not from not trying to leave. It's not that I didn't try, but it is. What I'd like to believe is a lot of the people who are in our industry have been
Mm,
called in this industry
okay.
in various ways, whether using TV, radio, podcasts, film,
Mm,
writing, producing. That there's a lot of avenues for you to get involved.
mm,
But I do believe a lot of people who are in this industry have been called to do it. And
mm.
even though you've been called to do it, it doesn't mean it's still easy.
True, true, true.
Um, it still has its challenges, and you will feel like maybe this is not for me. But
Mm, mm,
somehow, if you've been called to do it, and there'll always be something that brings you back in. And if you believe in God, you'll believe that it is God that brings you back in,
mm,
or He makes a way, or He opens a door, or He closes a door.
mm,
So that's how I've ended up staying. There's been doors that have been closed where I thought, okay, this is it, I'm done. And then another door opens. And you're like, oh, okay, maybe I'm not as done as I thought I was. And I think it's also just understanding that you need to be flexible in this industry as well.
mm,
So I came in as a TV presenter. I ended up studying journalism. I ended up
mm,
working in TV and radio and print and now film. So you need to understand that the talent that you've been given can be stretched in various other ways. Don't be rigid. What else can you do? What else have you
mm,
been called to do? Where else can you go and share your talent?
mm.
So yeah.
Okay. Now, I like the fact that when you were very honest in terms of where the industry sometimes give you a curveball where you almost feel like letting go and stuff. Now, the biggest one in which we all understand is the fact that this is a male-dominated industry for quite some time. Now we
Mm.
are now seeing the emerging of women coming up on board. I think I remember also in Nigeria there is this very particular woman also who is big, who is currently growing. I think I'll use the word Omoli Oboli, if I'm not mistaken, and who is also now, I think that is one again. I'm trying to remember her name. She owns a TV station called Ebony Life TV. And so all of a sudden now the
Mo
is that
Mo
more
Abudu.
yeah, more Abudu. You see, that's how much you are very good in your industry. I used to be there all of a sudden now, like you said, navigation then take you into a different space entirely. And I remember the other day I was telling a friend of mine, and so I was saying to them, I was mentioning some South African's name, and he was saying that to me, like, dude, you know a lot of these people. I'm like, trust me, it's hard for me to even remember them. All of a sudden, I have to think like, because now I only know Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, First Timothy, Second Timothy, and all those things because I have navigated. And
Yeah.
so now the thing there for you to be in a male-dominated industry, and all of a sudden now you were trying to push your way. What are the challenges in which you find? Because a lot of people are finding it very hard for them to be able to stay in the male because there is always that very particular compromise that sometimes shoot in that you were not prepared for, especially when it comes to issue of you operating in that very particular industry where you know this is men's space. All of a sudden, you wake up one morning, there is this Stephina lady who says that she can direct, and you're wondering like, okay, we're expecting a Teboko who is a guy to be able to direct this thing, and not a woman. So how did you navigate around this issue of male-dominated industry, but yet you still was able to push yourself to put your name on the pedestal where it is today?
Look, I think there'll be a lot of women who are in the industry, who'll tell you how hard it is to break in. I think a lot of the time when we talk about women, we usually in our industry we talk about women in front of the camera,
Mm, mm,
um,
mm.
because we're used to that more, the actor, the
Okay.
presenter. Uh, but it gets harder when it's positions of, positions of power
Mm.
to find more women. And I think over the last few years, inroads have been made where you have some really powerful women who've been able to, get into certain positions and be able to push there for other women.
Okay.
So over the last few years, I won't say it's been getting easier. I
Okay.
won't say that, but I'll say there would have been a little bit more visibility
Mm.
where women
Mm.
are concerned in positions of power. And
Mm.
also we take more risks now. We take more risks, we're not scared as much. Um, and we also are able to stand our ground. And I think
Mm.
above all, there's a lot more women who are realizing that I'm just as talented as the guy who's doing the same job, and
Okay.
who demand the respect that
Mm.
male counterparts are getting.
Okay.
So it's the same as for me being a female director.
Mm.
It's the fact that I must say I'm a female director, but a guy, there's no guy in South Africa who says I'm a male director. It sucks, but as a director who is a woman,
Yeah.
I do find that there are spaces I'm unable to get into purely
Mm.
because I'm a girl. Purely
Wow.
because I'm a girl. You get dismissed as, yeah, this she might not be able to handle the technical
Mm.
uh,
Mm.
aspect of this, or hey, we don't know if she's as talented as this other guy. So
Mm.
thankfully we've been able to. There are some people who are willing to give us a chance as
Okay.
directors who are women
Mm.
to say, well, we'll never know.
Mm.
We'll never
Mm.
know unless we give her this job to do.
Mm. Mm.
And I think we're in a space as women, unfortunately, where because some doors are starting to open for us, there's also the notion that we're not allowed to make mistakes. It's almost
Wow.
like if I've opened the door for you as a woman, you have
You've
to
never.
get it right the first time, which is
Wow.
unfortunate because guys are given a bigger leeway. If we
Mm.
hire you and you make a mistake, it'll be like, yeah, 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 you made a mistake, let's give him another job, he'll improve. But
Mm.
as
Mm.
women, we have this pressure of getting it right the first time, otherwise it means they might not give another woman the same opportunity ever again because of one
Wow.
person.
Wow.
So there's
Wow.
always that we must always think about as well.
Mm.
We also need to be allowed the space to make mistakes, to fail
Mm.
sometimes. And then after you fail, to go, okay, cool. Did you learn your lesson? Yes, I did. Okay, cool. Let's try it again. Because
Mm.
that's what is given to men, to guys in our fields. So we need to
It-
be afforded not just opportunity to enter the space, but
mm.
opportunity to also learn while we're in the space.
Mm, mm. Now, my question there that I want to ask you is the fact that what do you think it's the what you called? What do you think is the problem why men are given chance for them to make mistake, but women are not given? Because there must be a particular what you call conversation that is going around that very particular industry, especially for you women, that you guys have bumped into. Like, okay, these are the reasons why they give men this big space for them to come up second mistake, third mistake, or whatever mistakes and stuff. But for you women, this is just it once and for all. If you make it, fine. If you don't make it, get out of here and stuff. What do you think it's the factor that is sponsoring this very particular, what's it called, for lack of better word, lack of opportunity in your space where you guys are doing your businesses?
Look, I think it's multifaceted. I think it's there's no one answer. The
Okay.
truth
Okay.
of the matter is we do operate in a world that is patriarchal,
Mm,
whether
mm,
we admit to it or not. So
mm.
we do operate in a society that believes a man will do it right. I was born into that. You were born into that.
Mhm.
You know, it'll take us. It's taken us centuries to enforce that mindset. It'll take us more centuries to dismantle that mindset,
Mm, mm,
and it'll take effort from every one of us, men and women. We need
mm,
to be in a space where you understand your privilege.
mm.
Sometimes I think, especially black men, they understand race relations. They'll
Okay.
understand racism, but they will not understand gender equality. will not understand the fight for women's rights.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate, but we need to understand that if we are able as a continent especially, and as a country, to say we don't want racism, or this is racism, we need to do better where racism is concerned, then we also need to be able to recognize where there is gender disparity and say,
Mm, mm,
okay, as Darlington, I'm a guy. This is the privilege I've been given as a
mm,
guy. I've
mm,
been able to do
mm,
A, B, and C. So, what am I doing to make sure that I'm not only giving a woman an opportunity, I'm giving them a significant opportunity. So, I'm not saying, okay, no, come through onto dexterity. I'm saying, come be a producer, or come be on air with me if that is what you so wish to do.
mm,
What
mm, mm,
opportunities are you as a man opening up for other women?
mm, mm.
Because
I
it's
think
also up to each and every one of us as individuals.
Yeah, I think one of the things also in which I have seen, and this is something I'm trying to just find a way of paraphrasing the question this person sent in. So also it's based on the thing also I've noticed, where as a guy we try as much as possible to talk about what you call gender equality, gender what you call equality, trying to balance the spectrum between a male and a female, and also giving equal opportunity. It's so
Mm,
funny, and this is just my observation. I don't know if you have actually, I mean, if you've actually seen that in your own industry, where
mm,
it's so funny where when you talk about women empowerment or probably trying to push women to the platforms where they need to be relevant and also be able to put their voice on the table, it's so funny where you get the attack coming also from women who are telling you that enough of all this women empowerment and stuff, enough of all this women stuff and co. And for me, it's quite shocking. I'm like, we're trying to communicate. A few of us who are trying to be able to try to put women in the place where of influence and significance and relevance, but nonetheless, you still find these women also who still come up and tell. Because I remember very well, I think if I'm not mistaken, it was on the 9th of August. I posted something on my Facebook. It was so shocking that the people who were actually, for lack of better word, advising me to stop talking about women issues and stuff were actually women who says that it's enough for women. We need to start talking about men. And I'm thinking in my mind, I was just looking at some of the comments. I don't know what to say. It was so shocking. Do you face that very particular, what you call challenge where from your own female, and they're like, nah, this woman must not get it. It must go to this man and stuff, or it must go to these other women instead of coming together to empower each other as a woman? Do you face that very particular challenge in your industry?
okay, so I think your question is twofold. So the first
Yeah.
part, where a woman tired of woman empowerment, let's talk about the men, or I'm not
Mm,
sure what message it is that you posted. What I have seen and what I have heard is where we're talking about things like, for example, gender-based violence,
mm,
and we as women post things, or we raise awareness of protect women, please don't beat women, don't kill them, don't
mm, 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 mm,
and it's, I think there's a point in our society where we need to realize that we're not killing ourselves.
mm,
Men are
mm.
killing us. So to keep on addressing women is also, it doesn't do what it's supposed to do. Address
Okay.
the perpetrators. So perhaps that is where it was coming from.
Mm,
And where women will, yeah, I feel like I can't speak for every woman. I can only speak for myself
perfect. Yeah.
and those that are close to me.
Mm,
And the ones I know and myself are very much for women and other
mm,
women breaking down barriers and breaking down doors and entering spaces that we've previously not been allowed to be in.
okay.
And occupying those spaces and making our voice be heard and our
Mm,
perspective to
mm,
count. Because sometimes you are in a room, but nobody wants to hear you out, which
true.
then
True.
defeats the point.
Mm,
So society needs to be responsible in that way, that it's not just about window dressing. It's not about saying I'm in a boardroom and at least I've got two women. What are those
okay.
two women doing? What's their position? Are they there to make tea, or
Mm,
are they the CEO running the meeting?
okay.
You know, so we need to be deliberate in
Okay.
our in how we address women and gender issues.
All right. With this being said, for me, one of the things also that I see somebody is asking a question here is like somebody says, "Yeah, good to see her. I never knew she was the one who produced never knew she's the one who produced the movie, but it's quite good to know that women are now writing good stories. Please help me ask her, what are the challenges for women in accessing funding in the industry? All right, this one is coming from Bongani all the way from Soweto. Funding industry, how is it like for you women in accessing that very particular opportunity?
I think funding is hard for anyone because unfortunately it's such a admin driven aspect that I think a lot of the time they have not. I've said this even to some of the funding bodies that I don't
Okay.
think you are understanding that if I'm coming looking for funding for my business or for my film,
Mm,
and saying we're looking for young filmmakers or black filmmakers, it already
mm,
means I'm coming from a very disadvantaged background
okay.
to a certain extent. And some of
Mm,
the things you've asked for here, I mean, I've handed in forms with my business partner that's been like thick books, basically, that you've had to print, and that costs money.
wow.
And
Mm,
not thinking about, so that there's certain barriers to reaching a level where you're able to access that funding, which I
mm,
think needs to be simplified for
mm,
everybody, whether it's a
okay.
woman, it's a man, young, old. I think we just need to understand how our industry works and then have channels that speak to that, to how our industry works, because at the moment it's usually a standardized way of, even agriculture uses the same methods, even construction uses the same methods, and it's like, no, but we in film, TV, and media,
Mm,
our industries don't operate the same way.
mm, mm,
So it is hard to access money, funding for anyone, whether it's from our government or from the private sector or from businessmen and women. It's hard for all parties involved.
okay. Now, on that question here that I see that is coming here, it says, what are the system in which you put in place for you to become formidable in the industry, for you to even have a movie on Netflix? There must be some certain things in which you put in your mind to get to this place. I've tried entering into the industry. I tried entering into the industry. It was quite hard for me. But seeing a woman doing this is a motivation to me. What do you think I need to know to be able to stay put in the industry as I'm looking forward going back into it again? Okay. This one is coming from Ketiwe, all the way from Santin.
Sure, Ketiwe. I think for me, it's there's no one way of doing it. And
Okay.
I think people who have been doing stuff for many years in one industry will tell you
Mm,
that, and I'll be the first to tell you that it's
okay.
hard. I
Okay.
will never paint a rosy picture. Maybe it is easy for other people, but for me personally,
Mm,
my
mm,
walk and
mm,
my journey has been a little bit harder than most, because there's challenges, and sometimes, especially our industry, it's lights, it's camera,
mm.
you it's glitz and glam. It's easy to think, ah, that's easy, I must
That's
just put on
easy.
makeup, I must just attend an event. But to be able to have longevity
Mm, mm,
in our
mm.
industry, there's a lot more that you have to do outside of just attending events.
Okay.
You have to sow into yourself. You have to take a course here. You have to be willing to learn. You have to be willing to learn new skills.
Mm, mm,
You have to be willing to do certain jobs that you might not have initially thought you'd need to do
mm,
just to
mm,
pay bills.
mm, mm,
It's not always rosy. It's not always paycheck after paycheck. Sometimes you get paid this month and then you don't get paid for another 4 months.
mm, mm.
So it's hard for everyone involved. And there's a few who will maybe have a different journey to mine, who tell you maybe for them it was easy. I,
Yeah.
I don't know. For me personally, it's a lot of tears, it's a lot of crying, it's a lot of praying, it's a lot of that.
A
So
lot of everything.
yeah, to have a film on Netflix is, by the time it comes, sometimes you just like, sure, you
Finally.
can't sometimes you're too exhausted to even celebrate because you've put in work, you've cried, you've called, you've had doors closed and on your face. It's
Mm,
hard, guys. It's
mm,
hard. So
mm.
if somebody says to me, yeah, no, they looking at my journey and going, oh, you've got a film on Netflix, please don't think it happened overnight. It took us, I think, 2 years to get our film onto Netflix. 2 years of phone calls
Wow.
and emails and backs and forths, and you know, we've been in chat, yeah, in talks with them since 2018. So when it happens, people are like, "Yay, it happened," and you just like, "Yo, this has been a 2-year conversation."
At that moment, you don't even have energy to celebrate. You're like, whatever.
You don't, you just like, "Oh, thank you, God, amen, hallelujah." Okay, you tired, and
Yeah,
you've even moved on to other projects by then.
yeah, true, true, true,
You're
true.
worrying about your next paycheck. You're worrying about how am I going to put food on the table.
Mm,
You've completely moved on because now you know, okay, it's finally going to happen, but now you need the next thing. So
mm,
there's a lot of people, especially people who still want to enter the industry, who have a very, I'll say, a very weird way of looking at the industry, because you see these people on TV, you see them in movies, you see them looking nice and with makeup and whatnot, and you think,
yeah.
oh, I want that. But what you need to understand is the show is only for 30 minutes or 24
I didn't-
minutes. What happens in the rest of the 24 hours or the 23 and a half hours, hours that's left?
Yeah,
It's a lot of hard work. When
yeah.
you see somebody acting and you're like, oh, I can do that, it's because they're making it look easy. They've put in so much. Chances are, before we took that take, they were in tears because they were probably thinking, I'm not going to get this right. They've
Mm,
studied for years. There's a lot of sacrifice that comes in with working in our industry. You
yeah.
sacrifice a lot of things. You sacrifice as a writer director. There's a lot of times when my friends are meeting and they've got brides and I'm sitting with a script and I can't go out. I can't spend time with my family because
Mm,
I'm working on the next script or I'm working on my shots for whatever I'm directing next.
mm,
So
mm.
there's a lot of sacrifice that comes with it, and not everyone is willing to make the sacrifice,
True. Um,
understandably.
I have this one coming from Peter from Cape Town here. He's asking, he says, good conversations you guys are having, and I like the fact that you guys are chilled in your talk. My question to Stephina here is, how does she balance a family, knowing that the industry is very strong? Sometimes you don't get gigs. How does she put the bills on? How does she pays the bills on the table, and at the same time still put her family together? This is something that I want to know, because it's quite hard for women out there to be able to break in and also have a stable financial income, especially with the media space. Hmm. This person wants to find out. Peter from Cape Town wants to find out, how do you balance those, what's it called, the ups and down. Your check doesn't come, like you said, your check doesn't come in every month. It comes in when the film has been approved, and yeah, there are some certain months you need to pay some certain bills that you're throwing the bills into. Like, okay, this money needs to come and it's not coming, and you promise every other people to say, okay, I will pay this, I'll pay you tomorrow, and the tomorrow never comes. So how do you manage to go through all those ups and downs?
Look, I think with everyone, usually we get asked this question of how do you balance work and life, and it's like, yeah, but I've yet to hear people ask guys that question.
I think for guys, it's the fact that we find a way of having like five stream of income. So when this one comes in, this one doesn't come in. Or maybe for guys, I think this is just me saying it for guys now. Maybe for
Mm,
guys, you know that you have that 30 days make one pay. That's how we call it in my country. 30 days make one pay, 30 days make one pay. So you are able to balance what's it called. But when it comes to, for example, like your industry where you operate in now, it's not a 30 days make one pay. It's a one movie approved for money to come in for you to be able. So, and that one movie, like you said, with this very particular one that is currently now on Netflix, you said it take you 2 good years, and
yeah.
that's almost, if I'm not mistaken, 24 months of owing rentals for the house, paying electricity bills.
Yeah, look, I think it's what I said earlier. You need to understand when you're in this industry that you're not just going to do one thing.
Okay, now that's where we're talking about now.
Because you won't survive. You
Okay.
just won't survive. And those who do survive on doing one thing are really blessed. They're really, really lucky to be able to do one thing and then get enough for their bills and to be able to save, but they also are always planning on what happens if I lose this gig. The majority of people in the industry are doing more than one thing. That's why, especially women, you'll find that I'm a writer, director, producer. I mean, I have my own business with my business partner, and I write and I direct and I have to produce. It's not my favorite thing to do, but it has to be done. And then I also will do a voiceover here and there. I direct commercials. You have to have multiple streams of income, like you're saying, because you can't just rely on one. And then with all that, still worry about your family and worry about, am I spending enough time with my family? Am I present? Do they understand that when I'm not with them, why am I not with them? Do they understand that I'm putting away, I'm putting in all this time to make sure that 6 months from now we have an income, or a year from now we have an income.
True.
So you need to also surround yourself with good friends and ensure that your family understands what you're doing and why you're doing it. And you won't be able to survive much if you don't have a strong support system in this industry.
All right. For my family who are currently streaming, I'm speaking to the producer. I don't know why I like putting the word producer. Okay, producer, writer, and director. I think you actually said that you also produce, because I hear you just say it now. Producer, writer, director, and Stephina Zwane, and who currently have a movie on Netflix known as Baby Mama. Possibility that she has other movies that I don't know, but I think this is the current one that I know of. And so she may be able to tell us later on what are the things in which she has on her sleeves that we need to look forward. We know, COVID-19 has made everybody to just go indoors. And so all of us, we actually have our plan 2021. For strange reason, COVID-19 make us to actually just rest and say, by force rest that we don't want, but we have no choice than for us to just rest. My next question here that is coming up here, and this one, it's coming from... I promise I don't know how to pronounce the name, but damn it, I'll end it with Glomo. Your first name is very hard to pronounce, so guys, pardon me name. This tongue is from West Africa, so it's from West Africa. I'm trying to make sure that it's in, but I'm calling you Glomo. You know who you are, so that's good. And here you say, have you been engaged in a place? Have you been engaged in a place where you are afraid that this very particular project will not work? And if it works, and if it didn't work, how did you manage the fears of failure when it comes to your face? This one is coming from Glomo, all the way from Cape Town also. Phew. Fear of failure, how do you navigate that?
I have no idea. Because it's constantly there. No, it's constantly there, especially because my
so the fear
personality
is constantly standing in front of you and
every single day, especially
okay.
when you're a perfectionist, right? Because my personality type is I'll only do a thing when I've thought about it and I've planned and I've looked at the pros and cons and I've calculated, should it go wrong, what would happen, and should it go right, what would happen. But it's constantly there. The fear of failure is always there. It's learning how to manage it and understanding that you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know the outcome. True. All I can do as Stephina Zwane is give it my best shot. All I can do is write the script in the best way I know how, with taking advice from so and so and so and so, and ensuring that the product that I release is to the best quality as I can do it.
True.
And then it's no longer yours. When you release a film, it's yours for the time you conceptualize it to the time you start writing and casting and shooting and editing and all that stuff. The minute you show it to other people, it's no longer yours. It's no longer yours. Everybody will look at it and insert themselves and their own experiences into their film, into your film. Whether it's, I don't like this character, or I like this character, or I like the music, or I don't like this. It's got nothing to do with you anymore. It's up to them, the audiences. So understanding and making peace with, I will put in the work, but there's a point where it doesn't matter how much more work I put in. The outcome of it is no longer in my hands. All I can do is believe and hope that it comes out all right. That's it.
Yeah. Okay, I think this question I want to ask. This is for me based on the fact that I've been okay. Of recent, I would say I'm partially active, but previously I was fully active when it comes to this very particular entertainment industry. But one of the things in which I've noticed within this very particular, okay, I'll use what South Africa compared to us as Nigeria, in the sense that we have, I don't know how, for strange reason, Nollywood seems to be able to produce movie every 10 seconds, and South Africa, it still look as if it's a huge struggle. Now, and with us as Nigeria, the truth of it is the fact that the first time I will hear funding, it's when I came into South Africa. I'm like, so the fund movie in South Africa, I say yes. Then that's where I now started checking, and I hear a word of what's it called, this NVSF or something like that. Yeah. And a couple of others which I've forgotten currently now. My question that I want to ask you is, what is it that South African has not been able to break into? Because now I'm not talking about the women's space. Now I'm just talking about the media mountain where you occupy at the moment, especially with the fact of the film and the producing and the what's called the writing and the directing. What is it that, for lack of better words, South African has not been able to crack into to be able to produce film independently? One, for you, maybe it's the marketing system, or maybe it's the producer structure, or maybe it's, I don't know, you know better. Because for me, I've tried as much as possible. I remember years back, I think if I'm not mistaken, that should be like 7 years ago, where I produced a movie called Friends with This. And so what then happened is the fact that I tried producing it in South Africa. It did not work for me. I tried as much as possible to bring in some artists into South Africa, do it and stuff, and send it back home to Nigeria, and it was fine. I'm like, Father, thank you, because this system here I don't really understand, and I'm still struggling. What is it for you that you've seen that, okay, Nollywood, because I don't want to go into Bollywood and Hollywood because those guys look as if they're advanced. Let's stay within our continent here. For you, Nollywood cracking it, where if you look at Netflix now, for instance, you find a lot of Nollywood movies compared to when I don't know if South Africa is called Sollywood. You know, sometimes you just want to just change the end.
Haven't figured it out yet.
Sometimes you just want to say, okay, because it's Sollywood and Nollywood, and if it's Ghana, you like Gollywood and stuff. For you, what is it that you've seen that you're like, okay, if we can get this one right, if we can be able to put this very particular thing compared to other nations who are currently cracking it in the industry, what are the things that you want to put as a conversation that you've noticed? And if you have a power of changing, you will change that.
Sure, it's a tough question to answer because it's multifaceted, at least in my experience. I think the issue with where our film industry is and where it could be is, and why it's not where it could be, is multifaceted. Because where Nollywood is concerned, Nollywood releases far more films a year compared to some.
That's why I say it's per second. We release per second.
Yeah. But where the differences are is Nollywood releases films which, in terms of money, in terms of budget, they've got various streams, but they still, compared to the lowest budget South African film that ends up in cinema, our South African film in terms of budget is higher than the average Nollywood film that ends up in cinema.
True.
So comparing it, I don't know whether it's a matter of comparing or it's a matter of learning from either, from both of the countries or the regions. Then there's the issue of numbers. Nigeria has a population.
200 million. Don't worry. Let's stay with that. That's the last count.
I think the last I checked, we're at 180 million in Nigeria alone, not including Ghana, not including Benin and the surrounding country, right? Where South Africa, we have a population of about 55 million people. We have far more cinema screens compared to Nigeria, but our prices are higher compared to what the price is in Nigeria. But one of that's why I said it's multifaceted, because another issue with us is, it's not an issue, it's a good thing, but it ends up affecting our local industry, is we have a very well-developed TV industry.
Yeah.
So our soapies, our dramas, people are able to get a taste of their stories through our TV, through our TV stations. And they're high quality and they're great. And they're in the comfort of their home. Where when we come and we release Baby Mamas, I'm asking you to leave your home and go to the cinema to go watch it, and then spend what you would spend paying for a Hollywood film. And then we have the issue of distribution, where and so the other difference is in Nigeria, the law allows very few Hollywood films into their cinemas.
Okay.
Or in South Africa, at any given time, in a cinema that has 10 screens, you're lucky if you find one South African film
Hmm.
as opposed to the 9 that come from Hollywood. Where
Hmm.
in Nigeria, it would be the opposite. You'd
Yeah.
find 9 Nigerian films and
True.
1 South African film.
Hmm.
So there's another aspect of it where Nigerians then have become used to consuming their own stories
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
then being given a variety of stories to consume. South
Hmm.
Africa will only release, I think, maybe about, if we're lucky, on a good year as a country, we'll release about 14, 15, on a very good year, 15 movies a year that are South African.
Wow. 15 a year.
15 a year. So, and it's because there's certain standards that we need to follow. So our distribution channels, so our cinemas will tell you, no, we can't put this film on cinema because the quality is not good, or we can't put it in here because of, they'll give us all these excuses, right?
Hmm.
And then the same doesn't apply for Hollywood films, but it's also because they've signed 100-year, 50-year contracts that says if this film comes from MGM or Warner Brothers, it will have to be released in this country. So they will move Baby Mamas out if Baby Mamas is that one screen. It's like, you guys have been in cinema for 2 weeks. It's fine because I've got a Warner Brothers film that's coming, and I'm contractually obligated to put it in there. Otherwise, I get into trouble. So where Nigeria has laws that protect their filmmakers and their storytelling, South Africa doesn't have the same for our films, where we support more Hollywood than we do our own. And with my view, at this point in our lives, in 2020, we needed to have been in a position where we have South African films and we have films from Ghana and Nigeria already in our cinemas.
Hmm.
But we don't find that. On the odd occasion, I mean, I can remember 2 films that one was from Nigeria and one was from Ghana that was released in South Africa, and it was Wedding Party and it
Yeah.
was Potato Potato.
Yeah. Potato. Yeah. I remember.
And this is in the last 5 years. 2. And you are telling me these are stories with Black people telling Black stories. And South Africa is a population of 90% Black people,
Hmm. Hmm.
or let's say 80% Black people. But why are we not exchanging our films, right? So we were fortunate in that we were invited to a festival in Lagos before we released in cinemas here. And when we were there, one of the distributors was there, and they watched the film and they were like, we want to release the film in Nigeria and surrounding countries. And we were like, yeah, please, yes, let's do that. Because story is story. Story is story, and especially where Black people and African people are concerned, our stories are very much the same. We all grow up in the same houses. We all get shouted the same by our mothers and our aunts, and which is why Nigerian films became big even in South Africa once upon a time with the DVD system, where people would buy the DVDs to go watch. It became huge because our stories, the very essence of our stories, are the same. So we're not capitalizing on sharing our stories. So as a result, our company, after releasing in Nigeria, our company decided going forward, it makes no sense to only release films that don't include a Nigerian cast member or a Ghanaian cast member or a Kenyan cast member, because we need to be moving as storytellers.
Yeah.
We need to be telling stories around the continent first and foremost,
Yeah.
and then to the world, right?
Mm.
To the diaspora and then to the world. We cannot continue to tell our stories in these small little groups of, no, this is a South African story, it's in Zulu, this is a South African, it's in, it's great and there's a place for that. But generally, we need to start thinking bigger, and if for you to think bigger, you have to be inclusive.
True.
Again, I say, if the Nigerian population is sitting at 180 million people and my country is sitting at 55 million people, where does, if I had to choose, I would choose to rather release the film where there's more people per
Yeah.
capita,
Mm.
right? Which is why we have to think bigger by including and working with other producers from other countries. Unfortunately, because of who colonized us as a country, we usually think, when you think of co-production, you usually think of going into Europe, and if you're lucky, maybe even into America. We need to start doing collaborations with our counterparts because we get each other. I am
Yeah.
not going to be explaining to you what a mother-in-law is,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
or if you have an evil mother-in-law, what that evil mother-in-law will be like, or if she's good, what she'll be like. I don't need to explain that to you. If I say, who,
Exactly.
if I say to you,
Yo.
you, my mother-in-law, you already know what I mean. Done. But if I say the same thing to somebody in England, they'll be
Yeah.
like, oh, you, your mother-in-law, what about her? Because
What
they
about
want
her?
to. So you then find yourself explaining your culture, explaining your blackness, explaining your Africanness.
Mm.
And unfortunately, we've become used to that because of who we end up collaborating with. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what I am saying is we need to also collaborate with each other on the continent.
Mm.
Africa is where it's happening right now. Africa has
Wonderful.
always been where it's happening. It's
Mm.
always been where it's
Mm.
happening.
Mm.
Colonization wouldn't have happened had it not been for Africa, right?
Mm.
So it's always been the place to, we set the trends. We have all these resources from the usual gold and whatnots, but even just who we are, who
Mm.
I am as a Black African child who grew up on the continent, makes me already so much more different to anyone else that I'll meet in Hollywood who grew up in
Mm.
Hollywood. And, it already makes me dynamic, which means my
Mm.
story will be dynamic.
True.
And we
True.
need to start appreciating that. And we need to start being able to package that and sell that. And we can
Mm.
only do that if we move together as a continent.
True. I think what the thing there for me is when it comes to the issue of entertainment, I love that, especially entertainment and media, because that very particular mountain for me, it drives the way people. It has a force of culture to reprogram people's mind and to reprogram and to also change the narratives in which the way people are talking. Now, my
Exactly.
question that I want to ask before I get into the Fed-based stuff, because my time is quite running out, but I need to just ask this very particular one. Why is it difficult for us as, and this is something that I've observed here in South Africa? If I'm wrong, please correct me. Trust me. If I'm wrong, please correct me, because you are more active in the industry compared to me, who, for lack of a better word, partially retired a few years ago. Why is it hard for fellow Blacks here to be able to collaborate to produce something? That's my one question. Then, secondly, why is it hard for us as Black around here for us to invest in each other? For instance, you were talking about the whole issue of Nigerian cinemas, and you guys have more cinemas better here compared to us in Nigeria. And our method of production, in which I grew up in Hollywood, big time, where I know by the time you produce a movie, the next thing you are thinking is to produce a movie, put it on DVD, and make sure that somebody buy it on the street for 150 rand, 150 naira. Yeah, because I need to be careful. If you say 150 rand, people are like, yo, that's expensive. 150 naira in Nigeria. Convert that currency to South Africa, that's like about 30 rand or 40 rand, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken. Last time so, but our endpoint is the fact that you can get an actor or an actress in Nigeria for them to come together. I'm talking about what you call collaborativeness, because I remember telling you, um, my wife also operates in the entertainment industry, currently writing for one of the what's it called soaps in South Africa here. But you find that sometimes by the time I hear some of our conversations around, this person does not want to come because it's all about them, or probably they want to do it their own way. And compared to Nigeria, and Omoli Oboli can come and bring in 10 different big actors to come and act. And before you
Mm.
know what is going on, she's not even paying them yet, but everybody is giving their 100%, knowing too well that by the time it hits cinema or probably hit on the street, money is going to come out and everybody's going to get paid and stuff. But you find that disparity here. What is the problem?
I don't know what the problem is. I will say this to you. I've been to
Because
Nigeria.
you're in the industry, so apparently before you could get all this cast and stuff.
Okay, let me say it to you like this. Number one,
Okay.
we don't own our media.
You see, I like now you are being honest. That's what I want to hear.
Yeah, it's true. And
Coming
we will never
gradually.
get a solution until we speak the truth, okay?
Because the
So
thing there is the fact that you guys want to speak that. That's why for me, I need to poke that conversation to come out. In
no, we
terms of
don't own our media. Our media is owned by white
yeah,
owned by white people. It is
okay.
what it is. So therefore, there's certain conversations we can't have where collaboration is concerned, because I'm not speaking to my brother.
Mm,
I'm not speaking to my sister saying, please put my film in, and then when people support, then we'll pay so and so. No, whoever owns the cinemas is not black. Let's start there. And that's problem number one. But when I'm in
okay.
Nigeria, the person who owns the cinema is black.
100%.
100%. We
Don't
sat
be attached. It's just
in South Africa with South African cinemas,
yeah,
and it was a different conversation and environment to when we sat in a boardroom in Lagos
yeah,
with a cinema owner who's black, who
yeah.
understands our story, who understands the audience.
Mm,
So already that's a big problem. We don't own our media.
all right.
And
One.
then another thing is, unfortunately, in South Africa, we don't like to collaborate with each other, which breaks my heart, because I've been in rooms when I've said to people, oh, we need to work together, we need to do a film together, we need to do a show together. And then you hear, but why?
Sure.
We competition. Why would we? And you're like, yeah, we're not compete. We can't be competing. This industry is way too small for that.
Mm,
We only move forward if we work together. And I think that is the one lesson we still haven't learned as filmmakers in South Africa. We need
mm,
to. I think this group of producers and filmmakers now, our generation, I
mm.
think will be different.
Okay.
But I am hoping will be different. But I will easily collaborate. It'll be easier for me to get hold of Omoni, to get
Mm,
hold of Mo Abudu
mm,
in Lagos and in Canada, wherever they are,
mm.
than for me to get hold of a South African producer here. And if I am able to get hold of them here, they would still not be keen in getting involved because they feel we competing,
Instead
which
of
breaks my
compliment.
heart, because this is how Nollywood became Nollywood.
Yes. Yeah.
They work together. They work together, and their businessmen and women understand investing in film.
True.
So where you guys don't have funding
Really?
bodies like the NFVF,
Mm,
we do. Nigeria has businessmen and women who say, how much do you need? You need 50,000. Here it is. I'll give it to
mm,
you. When am I getting it back? And how much is it going to be? Cool,
mm,
done. We move. We're not at that point yet. And I
mm,
frankly still believe we are focusing too much on making films that are too budget wise, they're too expensive, because we're not making that money back in cinemas.
true.
We
True.
need to be at a point where we're making our films for 2-3 million and still have the quality as high as it needs to be. But
Mm,
if you're making them at 2-3 million, you're able to produce more.
mm,
We've set these very high standards. I think there's a level where we've compared ourselves too much to Hollywood, but
mm.
not understanding that Hollywood has over 350 million population.
True.
And we don't. But
Mm,
we're taking all these systems from all over the world and we're trying to apply them to here, but they're not working.
mm,
We need to get to a point where we have a solution and the system that speaks to South Africans and benefits people on the continent before it can benefit people outside of the continent. And that's how we grow. But unfortunately, I think it'll take a bit more time before we get there.
I think this is the thing that I just want to say, family, here is the fact that, see, let's just try as much as possible to invest in blacks. Whether you
Please.
like it or not, it's something that we don't have. We just have to come together. It's not something that we need to think about. It's not something that we need to pray about. And I think thus far we've prayed. For those of you who knows me, a lot of time I tell you, it's high time for us to engage. Let's stop praying. This praying business, like now I'm praying for some certain person to come and help me approve this very particular thing. When you can go meet a Stephina to say, okay, fine, woman, come, let's do this thing together and stuff. You already have a name. And that's why for me, I'm very strong when it comes to the issue of leveraging. Because I know,
Mm.
and that's the big thing with Nigeria. Nigeria, we progress in leveraging. Yo, it's our motto.
No, I'll tell you now how I'll say this to you. How we ended up going into film
Yeah.
with my business partner is there was Discop. There's a market that happens in Santon every year,
Okay.
late in the year, November. So, and we met this. We met a few people that one year, and one of them was a Nigerian guy,
Yeah.
and he was here to sell his films.
I don't know why I need to laugh on this because look just
And we met this guy, and he was a distributor. He says he's a distributor and he sells films, and he's looking to meet with Stephina. And he says to us, and at the time we don't know, we don't know the people to speak to at Stephina. And he says, "Do you guys know Stephina?" We're like, "Yeah." And he says, "Okay, please call the CEO and tell him I want to meet with him." And we're like, "Wait, we don't know the CEO." And what we took away from the conversation was that he was determined. He was not gonna let anything stop him from meeting with the people he needed to meet so that he could sell his film. He was a hustler to the core. And I remember we left that day. I think we spent a few hours with him. We spent about 3-4 hours with him, just watching him, talking to him, finding out more about him. We left that day and he had forever changed our minds.
Yeah.
That hustling spirit where he wasn't waiting for things to fall into place, whereas that's what we were doing. We left. We walked out of that week of meeting him. And I think the very next week I said, we're writing a film. And that's when we wrote our first script. And we said, we don't have money. We don't have the big budgets, which is why we hadn't done a film before. We don't have the big budgets. We'll make this film with whatever we have. It'll look however it looks, but at least we'll have something to show.
Yeah.
And we went and we shot our first film, which was Love and Kwaito.
Okay.
From just understanding that we've spent so much time trying to get things perfect, trying to get funding from this body and funding from that body, where in Nigeria, they are making films. Nonetheless,
We just wake up,
learning. The film
we can
doesn't
carry our phone and just do a film and we're good.
the film doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
And in fact, it won't be perfect. Your first film will not be perfect. You're lucky if it is. You really are very lucky. But don't let that stop you. Because with each new film and each new story and each new body of work, you improve as a producer, as a writer, as a director. You keep learning and growing. And I always say the director I was in 2015, when I directed my first film, 2015, 2016, is not the director I am now. Because I've been able to do more and more and more and grow and improve. So don't paralyze yourself overthinking and waiting for things to fall into place, waiting for the most expensive camera, waiting for the best TV star to come on board. Find the people who are interested and who are committed and do what you need to do. It will work out in the end, because at the end, everything worked out. Had we not done Love and Kwaito, there would be no baby mamas.
True.
So, and there won't be anything else going forward. So you have to bet on yourself and understand that it might not be the best product. It's okay. The point is not to be the best product. You're not Steven Spielberg.
Get in there first.
He started something.
Now, my question I want to ask, so that I can then begin to bring this very particular thought in the close within the next 7 minutes. How do you navigate your fate in the industry where you know that compromises sometimes are very high? Ability for you to want to cut corners and shift what you believe in terms of, because one of the things in which, when it comes to the issue of entertainment industry and stuff, for those of us who are Christians, we seems to make it look as if, okay, no, that's the devil's workshop. But how do you manage to be there? I'm saying that from a Nigerian point of view. Maybe you guys don't have that view, but when you talk entertainment in Nigeria, if you're not a Christian and you go into that very particular, so that's why you can see in Nigeria, you find gospel movie different from secular movie, because they'll tell you, no, going to the entertainment industry, that's a devil's workshop, like devil dear. That's where he forms his enterprise. But for you, keeping your faith together, and yet you are still in there, still active, still doing what you're doing. How do you balance your faith and yet you still tell a story that is relatable? Trust me, Baby Mama movie, which you do, I mean, the movie in which I watched, that was relatable. I could feel, for lack of the word, maybe because I understand what baby mama drama can look like, I could feel it. And in my mind, I was watching, I'm like, and this lady is a Christian, and she managed to find a way of coming out and telling a story that is real, but at the same time, also, you do not compromise your belief and your standard. How do you balance that?
I think sometimes as
That's a
Christians,
deep thought now you are. Because your eye was the other side. I'm like, okay, she reading
I
something
wanted
that
to find this thought and bring it. I think sometimes as Christians, right,
Hmm.
we become too prim and proper. Oh, we these perfect people. Um, and it, because I want to be perceived as this perfect person, it means I can't do A, B, and C.
Okay.
And find ourselves as Christians in, there's a lot of people, if we're being honest, are we being
Hmm.
honest? If we're being honest, you
Let's be
find,
honest. Okay.
hmm, find
This is a
yourself
honest conversation.
you find yourself as a Christian being judging everyone.
Okay.
And then you find yourself, and then you ask yourself why a lot of people don't like Christians.
Hmm.
They'll love Jesus and they'll love God, but they ain't gonna love Christians.
Okay.
Because sometimes, no, we have to be honest, because
No, it's
sometimes
okay.
as Christians, as the holy Christians,
Yeah.
we go into the world and we want to we point out everything that's wrong with other people.
Okay.
We spend a lot of time going, this one is like this, don't do this, this one is like that. And when you do that, you sometimes miss how God wants to use you.
Hmm. 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 Hmm.
You miss it
Hmm.
because you're focusing on something in a way that you think this is how it's supposed to be. So for me, when I started my walk with God, the fight that I would always have with Him, or would be, everybody does wrong,
Okay.
whether you want to, or whether you plan to do it, or whether you don't, and everybody, sometimes not everybody comes from a perfect family.
Hmm.
That would be
Hmm.
my
Hmm.
conversation with him, that not everybody comes from a perfect family.
Hmm. Hmm.
And there's this perfection that is expected from you when you're Christian. And I, for one, don't feel I will ever attain that. And number two, I'm not trying to attain that, because when am I going to live if I'm busy trying to be perfect? And so I found myself within an industry, so-called the devil's industry. And I was like, no, but I still, God will still use me, and
True.
in the way He wants to use me.
True.
And it's
True.
not about pointing out who's right, who's wrong.
Hmm.
My job is to tell a story. My
Hmm.
calling is to be a storyteller. I tell
Yeah.
stories.
Hmm.
And I tell stories not to say who's right and who's wrong. I tell a story that will hopefully hold a mirror to
Hmm.
whoever's watching.
Hmm.
I
Hmm. Hmm.
hopefully will create characters that when you look at them, you're like, sure, that's me, or who, that's my mom, or who, that will minister to people without them realizing that this is ministry.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
today the story will be baby mamas, and it'll be what it is. Tomorrow
Hmm.
might be a different story, might be a thriller where it's somebody who kills people.
Hmm. Hmm.
That
Hmm.
will still be ministry because of my intention and my heart and where my heart lies.
Yeah.
If you look closely enough, you will still see the ministry even in the thriller that
True.
that gets produced, right?
Hmm.
So sometimes we box ourselves as Christians, and maybe somebody's been given a voice to sing, and you say, no, that means I can only sing gospel music. And meanwhile, God has said, no, go sing pop, go sing R&B, because
Hmm.
in you singing that pop, in you singing that R&B, you still a child of God. So
True.
you will still do it in a way that God has led you to do it, which
Hmm.
means you will still reach people without them even knowing sometimes.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Hmm.
we as Christians have this way of thinking that there's a manual. There's a way in which you must do it. This is the manual, follow it or you're doing it wrong. And I've never been like that. I've always done my own thing. I've always just gone short left or short right, whichever way I feel or whichever the way the Spirit leads me. Because
But
how the Spirit leads me will be different to how the Spirit leads you.
true. 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 True.
And sometimes we want to tell people that no, but why would the Spirit lead you there? It's like, but it's none of your business.
Mm,
This is between
mm,
me and God. He said I must go into this industry.
mm,
And I'm
mm.
saying this to you because there was a time in my life where I was like, am I supposed to be in this industry as a Christian? Because there's so many things that are happening that I don't know if they fall part of my Christian walk,
Yeah,
right? And you question and you ask and you seek. And when you seek, you'll get the answers.
true.
You'll get the answers. And the answers I got led me to where I am today.
Mm,
Because
mm,
it's very easy to look at one person and how they are walking their life, and you think that's the only way to do it.
mm,
But
mm,
God has
mm,
deposited different gifts in you to that person that you might be looking at. The
mm.
problem is you want to copy exactly how they're doing it without
Okay.
seeking for yourself what's going to work for you and your spirit and how you talk to God and
Mm,
and your purpose on earth. 'Cause mine
mm.
will be very different to yours. And I think that's where people need to get to understand that we're all here for something and it's something special and it will be different. It has to be different for it
True.
to work. When you build a house, it's not just about bricks.
Mm-mm.
You can just buy bricks and try and build a house, but if you don't have cement and you don't have tiles and you don't have light bulbs and you don't have windows, so everything you need everybody to be able with different functions and different gifts to be able to build this house. But
Mm.
unfortunately, what I've seen is you see bricks and then we look down on windows. The people who are windows, you're like,
I
they're
can't do
not doing
that.
it right.
Yeah.
You see, instead of appreciating that they windows, and also windows are different. There's bathroom windows which are very different to lounge windows.
Yeah.
So we all want, we are all looking at one way of doing it, and that is what was frustrating me at some point. And until I read, and until God was like, "But why are you looking at one way? Did I only tell you there's only one way?"
I wonder.
And I was like, "Well, you didn't, but," and he's like, "Well, then go do it. Go do it in the way that I've said go do it. Stop doubting yourself."
All
And
right.
also,
All right. I know because of my time is quite running out. Two last
yeah.
questions which I'm asked now is because I'm enjoying it. Entertainment conversations for me, it's that's my default mode. And so I used to do it. I remember when we started Dexterity Radio, that was about, if I'm not mistaken, 6 years ago. And we were all out when it comes to I told people, I'm like, no, the Bible says be the light of the world, not the light of the church. And so because of that, dexterity brings in a Tiwa Savage, bring in a Don Jazzy,
Mm,
bring
mm.
in a Mahalia, bring in a whatever. And so everything comes together and stuff. And so now coming into the ministry, for people are like, okay, damn it, you still have that very particular blanket. Whereby people are like, no, but this guy was very strong. And when it comes to Sackler, so can he be a pastor to the point he's pioneering the church and all those things? In which I tell people, I'm like, say, calm down. When God wants to call you, he will call you. And he doesn't. I tell people, I say, the Saul that God called, the only thing that changed there was the P. Nothing changed. It's the first letter that changed. If three of the other words are still there, which means those three things are very important for God to be able to use to write some certain narratives. My question that I want to ask to you now is, do you wish to see more Christians comes into this very particular industry? When I mean, and also they be vocal like you, whereby you be able to say, okay, fine, this is my faith, I'm a Christian and stuff, but that would not negate me not telling the true story that which I'm seeing that is happening around my society. That's one. And the final question, which is one question is, do you want to see more people come in? And I think I remember I said, I'm still looking forward for me to see producers like your kind coming together and put a soap that will be running that is true of the gospel, but at the same time also run from Monday to Friday. And I'm praying to God for God to give me that finance for me to finance you guys. Now I do that every because I'm a man. I'm like, if your likes of Generation Uzalo and all those very particular things are running Monday to Friday, I think it's high time also for us to be able to speak and to communicate an intelligence that can also produce gospel stuff that can also run Monday to Friday with the quality of it. Because sometimes you find a Christian movie like, okay, bruh, quality somehow can be very dodgy. You're thinking, what the hell is going on? And yet we keep praying and saying that we have all the faith to pull all the possibility. So my question there is, do you want to see more people coming into the industry who are of a faith base like your kind? And second question, which is going to be my final question, if you are to have a billboard blank and you were asked to write something on that billboard, what would that be?
Why am I writing something on the billboard? What is the purpose?
The purpose there for somebody to look at that very particular billboard and say, and be motivated by that billboard of
Okay,
yours.
Cool.
So what would that be? That's a one statement. So let's start from the first question before we get to the last one.
So for me, of course, I'd love for more Christian people to get into the industry, but I'll also say this: a lot of the people that I know that are in this industry are Christian.
Okay.
There's very few that aren't, that I know.
Okay.
There's
Okay.
very few that aren't. They might not shout about it, and like I said, everybody needs to understand their own walk, um, and be true to that walk,
Yeah.
and not compare their walk to mine and yours and the next person and their pastor. And I agree, we've been saying this is a personal relationship with God.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it's personal, then let God show you.
Got
Don't
true.
let Stephina tell you. Let God. What did God say? Not what did Stephina do. What did God do? What did God say about your specific life? Seek that out for yourself. Because, and I'm saying this because I'll say there was a time in my life where I was stuck on trying to emulate everybody except listening to what God was saying, which will frustrate you. So it's very important. It's very important because what God says to me is not going to be the same as what He says to you. Now I must go into ministry because He said you must go into ministry. Now I'm thinking, okay, that's the way to go. No, you must follow, you must seek out that voice and that word from God that tells you specifically what your next step needs to be. That's very important. You can't live your walk, your Christian walk, based off other people's walks. We have that saying, stay in your lane. It's the same. Stay in your lane. Find out where's this lane going, and give it your best. Right? So that's how I'll answer that. And then in terms of a billboard,
I know you're thinking
um,
in your mind that I've seen a lot of billboard. I can't, you know what? Now that this is Stephina's billboard. What do you want somebody to read about it?
I'll easily say there's too many things running in my head. Okay, let's choose one. Let's choose
And
one.
mind you, this billboard is going to be on N1, eh? Like
Yeah, that's why it's very important.
it's very important, and I know you understand what advert and branding and placement is. So be careful with what you're going to say to them because it may be used against you in the court of law tomorrow.
No, I'll say be true to yourself.
Okay.
That's what the billboard will say. Be true to yourself.
Yes. Okay.
And the reason I'll say that is, again, we've all been called to do different things. You'll frustrate yourself trying to follow somebody else's walk. Find out what your walk is. Find out what your calling is, and do that. I love to sing. I love it with my entire being, but I
So
cannot hold a note to save my life. So
yo.
imagine if all I was doing is trying to be Rebecca Malup. How
Wow.
frustrating my life would be,
Mm, mm,
you
mm.
know? So that would be my message. Be true to yourself.
All right, family, that's how we come to the end of this very particular interview. You know too well that it's just going to be a 1 hour, 30-minute platform conversations. And my guest this very particular afternoon is no other person than Stephina Zwane, who happens to be a film writer, film producer, film director. And she's been in the industry, like she said, for almost more than 20 years. A friend that I've known for almost more than 11 years plus, like she actually, because she's very good with numbers. I'm not too good with numbers, which is okay. And I've seen her consistency in the industry. Getting to meet her again for me was just refreshing, getting to understand how she was able to pull through. And for those who are currently streaming, or probably you just joined us, you've just missed almost more than 1 hour, 24 minutes conversation. And so please take out a time for you to go back and also just watch this very particular thing on platform face. I'm not say platform, sorry. Dexterity Radio Facebook and also on Dexterity Radio YouTube channel. And so that you can then be able to understand how the navigations in which she was able to be able to put together to be where she is today. Trust me, women, you guys have the potential for you. You know too well, I'm your cheerleader. I will never apologize for me supporting my women and to make sure that you guys come out strong and to be able to do what you need to do. Like this very particular joke I like cracking with you women. As says Bible says, one which is 1,000, two which is 10,000. So which means women have 9,000 capacity and possibility locked down on the inside of them. But until you wake up to the reality of knowing too well that you have a 9,000 capacity for you to be able to pull off, trust me, you may be walking round about a circle without you getting to the center of the game. And so, with this being said, family, this is how I come to the end of this very particular. I see your message coming in, guys. That'll be next time. I think I have to talk to my producer to see if we can get her again back for us to do all the things entertainment and for us to be able to see what we can then do together. That'll be next time because of my time. Otherwise, I'll get fired on this job. I know you'll be like, I hear you. I don't want to get fired. My time was 1 hour, 30 minutes, and I need to keep to that very particular time. My dear friend, I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. And then I
Thanks.
hope by the time we reach out to you again, we'll be able to have all things just to talk. And what are we supposed to expect from you this year or next year? Because if I say this year now, like, okay, it's almost over. So what is coming out?
Are people planning for next year after the kind of 2020 we've had? Not me, I'm playing it by ear.
You're not serious. I didn't expect that answer.
I am playing it by ear. We'll see. I'll find out when you guys find out.
All right, family.
In 2019, I was like, oh, 2020 is going to be nice. I'm not falling for that trap anymore. I'll just wait and see.
All right, family. That's how she decided to end this very particular conversation live on Dexterity Radio. Not too well that I love you so much, and I don't know. She said she want to wait and see. If you have a plan, I promise I didn't expect that very particular response, but which is so good.
Guys, no.
We're still planning, my dear.
Mm-mm.
We still have faith and hope in that all things work together. Romans 8:28 is still very active. It's in the scripture. It hasn't been cleaned. So
I will meditate on the scripture, but I shall not plan anything.
no, nice man. I've never laughed like this, but thank you very much for making me laugh like this. And maybe if you need to consider comedy, maybe that should be something else you need to put. All right, family, it's a wrap. I'll see you guys again on Wednesday on Platform Conversations with me, Darlington Steven. Thank you very much, my dear friend. I really appreciate it. Thank you for making me laugh loud. Thank you very much, family. It's a wrap, and that's how I'll see you again. Come next week. On Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday, exactly 1 o'clock. And then I'll be joining you guys again for another Platform Conversations. You never can tell who the guest is. Bye for now.